Today on Get in the Lab, we're talking about identity and what's in a name or a title when we call ourselves podcasters, YouTubers, photographers. What does that really mean? What happens when that definition no longer matches us? Plus, we talk about the bandwagon of podcasting and answer a viewer question on being worthwhile. More on that in 3, 2, 1. Plato said, "Know thyself." It's not always easy, but it is necessary. This is Get in the Lab. Welcome back to the lab. I run small personal experiments to reach big personal goals. My name is Megan, so welcome back. Welcome. I'm lucky to have you. It's getting hot. It's very, very sweltering hot here. Where we're at. We're in Orange County. I got the lab rat tank top on. Couple things I want to talk about in this episode. Of course, we're talking about the identity crisis and what I really mean by that in a little bit. We all like the sound of titles. Podcaster, YouTuber. At one point, I had a title that was so audacious. What was it? It was Hazardous Materials Specialist 1. And we all like titles, right? But what happens when that changes or when the definition changes? How do we define ourselves in? So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, let me update you on this, this bandwagon of podcasting, this podcast movement. So I'll be speaking at Podcast Movement right here, a little shameless plug on video podcasting. But I have some thoughts to share with you, lab rats, about that because I came across an article on Medium by Srinivas Rao. He's the founder, creator of Unmistakable Creative. It's a fabulous interview style, very, very provocative, long format show, audio only. They get into some very interesting questions and interesting guests as well, because they're not the people that you see again and again and again on the podcaster radio or radar. So I like that, this guy always has seemed to put a lot of heart in how he runs his show. And because podcasting is becoming more of a mainstay in people and becoming more commonplace, like everybody's got to have a podcast now, just like everybody has a book, under their belt. It's becoming more of a business card thing. Like, oh, if you're an online content creator, you've got to have a book and a podcast and all these things. But anyway, podcasting is exploding right now. So I'm not knocking that it's exploding, and I'm not knocking that people are jumping on this bandwagon. I jumped on the bandwagon 3 years ago. So, it's like the online world standard, which is fine. At some point, I would like to have a book under my belt as well. Actually, I did write a book, and it was kind of like a tell-all thing of all of the biggest mistakes that I've made in my life that led me to create online content. No one read it. But writing it was definitely played a huge part into who I am today, and actually just being able to go through that therapeutic motion of writing it out and getting it out and purging all of those things that were in me that needed to be voiced. I'm sweating like crazy right now. So anyway, it goes to say that by creating something, with heart, even though I wrote a book a long time ago and nobody read it, it was still very, very important for me to write that because, like I said, it plays a huge part in who I am today. If I didn't voice those things in me, and I was still dealing with them internally and never really kind of purging it out of my system, who knows where I would be right now. So, when it always kind of goes back to when you create something with heart, which is what I'll touch in Srini's article here on Medium, is that there's always going to be a reward and a payoff for something that you put your heart into. So it's always just kind of a matter of perspective, really. So anyway, back to Srini's article titled, What We've Learned from Building a Podcast That Has 455-star reviews. Well, Srini, shit me up, because 450, goddamn, that's well done. That's quite proper. So I love this article because Srini calls out the wannabes and the fame seekers that seek to use podcasting as a sort of get-rich-quick kind of thing. And so he kind of pummels through all of the myths and the people who try to gain and hack the system. So it's awesome, right? So, a big thing that what I'm seeing in podcasting today is like, okay, cool, podcasting, that's something I need to do because everybody's doing it. Who are the people that I can get on my show so that people will click on it and I'll get downloads and I'll be popular and then I'll make a lot of money. I love that Srinivas actually just sees right through that, and he makes fun of and calls out the people who actually are thinking this way. And hopefully you're not in that camp of thinking that that's what podcasting can do for you. It definitely can do that for you, but it doesn't last. This sort of shallow, fame-seeking, clickbaiting thing of creating content can only have short-term effects. So I think that's fine. Like, people are always there's always going to be a kind of dark side to business, to podcasting, to creating content, to creating video. There are going to be creators that don't create content with heart and don't create content with good, honest, intentional means. But that's fine, because it only lasts for a little bit. It's a short-term gain kind of thing. You can hack the system for a little bit, but eventually the system and the people will see through that and you will fall to the wayside. And so even though podcasting is gaining in popularity, and some people will go, everybody's got a podcast now, that's fine. I don't think it's anything to be scared of or be worried about, because the people who do take it seriously and actually use their platform in a way that is constructive and it improves the quality of lives for other people and actually gives back to their industry, those are the people who will last. And the people who don't do that, they will not last. And so it becomes very simple, and there's really no reason to get all in a tizzy about the people that hack you or game the system, because they won't last. Those people won't last. People see through that in a quick minute. All right. So anyway, I concur with the article. It's a very good article. Just kind of reminding people to create content, whether that be a podcast or a video or whatever, with heart, and with honesty and with integrity. That's something I think that we as an industry, as a community, need to remind ourselves of that. And because the numbers and the likes and the metrics, those things that make our world go round, which are all, downloads, views, and clicks and all that stuff. Those are all very important metrics to measure, and they do validate the popularity of your show and give you great feedback, but it's not the only thing. And the real reason behind why podcasting is so great is because of those creators who take into consideration to be really serious about their craft and the message that they're putting out. So as long as we remind each other as content creators that this is the reason why we're here, which is, creating content with heart and being good, intentional people with each other and fostering really good relationships together, then it's all good. It's all good. But it always helps to just kind of remind each other and to say it too, like not have it be this unspoken thing, but to actually, give it an episode title and talk about integrity and the business of podcasting, and that there is a dark side to podcasting that I've seen as well. And it's nothing to be like surprised with or be like, well, how could people do that? There's no reason to feel that way, because we're humans, and I forgive the people that don't run their businesses in a ethical way, because whatever their situation is, then that's what it is. But if I'm going to run my show a certain way, then I'm going to run it a certain way, because I have standards and just do that and not worry about anything else. It's a chance to build deep relationships with people and change lives, and a way to really develop important skills like communicating and empathizing and selling, in a non-sleazy way. So podcasting to me, considering this blow up and jumping on the bandwagon of podcasting, I think jumping on the bandwagon of podcasting is fantastic. If you can do that, it's definitely a tool that you can use to boost the platform of any business, any brand. But you have to use it responsibly, and to be honest and true to your own beliefs and the way that you want to be perceived in the long term. Okay, so if you're thinking about podcasting, there's really only one question that you need to ask yourself, and that's who needs to hear your message, and will it change their life in a big way or a small way? And that's kind of what I've chalked it up to be, what I've learned over the little bit of time that I've spent here in the podcasting world. You can change people's lives in a big way or in a small way, and that matters. So as long as you're kind of doing that, you're solving that issue or solving a problem, then yeah, podcasting is definitely a bandwagon to jump on. So let's move on to the next segment. What do we got here? About 10 minutes. Cool. Right on time. So the next segment, I'm going to give you a little niche site update. Here we go. I'm writing. Thank you. Yes. I'm writing. That's all I can say. I'm in the writing content creation phase, so not really much to share there. So seeing as that was boring as hell, I'm going to answer a question from Instagram, okay? So the Instagram question is from iHoke69. All right. Hey, couple questions. What kind of following does your podcast have these days? Are you where you thought you'd be? Or have you surpassed expectations? Also, since you do like video games on occasion, have you ever considered buying a Wii U? Or you're not into that console? I know these are all random, but I have a reason for asking. However, it seems easier to learn a little bit about you and your business before going into detail. It will let me know if what I have to say is worthwhile. All right, I hope. So I guess if I can chalk that up, besides the Wii U question, no, I don't play Wii U. I'm a PS4 gamer only, exclusive. I'm a PS4 exclusive. Okay. I guess that brings into question, how do I validate my show or even measure its success? Or am I somebody to model after? Valid questions. So here's what I do. Okay. I try to create the best content I know how to create, and then just talk about things that are relevant to what's going on and what's relevant to me, like what's relevant right now. What do I need to kind of bring to light and have a discussion about, or what problem did I overcome and how can I share that, right? And then I try to produce the best show that I know how. So something that I'll be super proud of to show people that utilizes most or all my skills right now. And I'm going to try to use everything to my advantage because nobody knows who I am. So I'm going to try to use every advantage that I have. Okay, then I market it very quietly. The show, that is, this is probably the weakest part of the show. I'm very self-aware and working on the sales and the marketing of just the mentality of selling myself, right? So we'll get into that in more episodes later as I experiment and work through that. And then I just engage with good people on social, trying to help and give likes, comments, feedback, my experience, sharing, and then in private and open groups to show, who I am and what I stand for in social. And I do that as much as I can. I try to keep it to engaging on social. I try to keep that to a balance with everything else that I do, because it can take over. Like, I think for like a day, I was just on chat for the whole day and it just took over everything. And so with social, I try to keep that in check nowadays. And then how I measure my success. So I measure it in a qualitative way. I look at my numbers as sort of like secondary validation to what I produce. Views of one show have gone up, interestingly. So before, when I used to put out daily shows, I would have a standard like, okay, a little bit of views kind of spread out throughout the week. But now that I have more concentrated content, production value and attention towards one show, and I only kind of market one show once per week, the views for that one show have gone up, which makes sense. That's what I predicted. So that's good that is happening. People have more time to digest the message that I'm putting out each week, and I'm even thinking about putting 2 weeks in between each show, because these shows are getting longer as time goes on, and I think I like that kind of format where I have a good chunk of time in between each segment or each episode. That way people who are actually into the show have time to digest it, right? And not just have to deal with new content every week. Like every week is good to be in the feed, but I have a lot of content already, and so I'm thinking about spreading it out even more to just give the content its a good breadth of time to sit in the internets and be consumed, because it is a long episode to watch. And then also putting kind of like timestamps, so it's easier to navigate amongst these very long episodes that I really like to produce. So another thing is my sub rate, which is always slowly climbing up. Views have increased, interestingly. And the episodes, an episode of Get in the Lab of season 3 has actually broken the top 10. So that's very interesting too. So what I had predicted is, as far as, upping the content and the quality is paying off as far as being validated in views in YouTube. So that's how I kind of measure the success of my show in a qualitative and quantitative way. Also, I get great feedback from the podcasting circles that I'm in, and they could just be tooting my horn and all this stuff. But at the same time, I think like, well, if I don't think people would actually say the things that they're saying if the show didn't have some merit. Because sometimes I think everybody deals with this. Is my show really great? Is my content really great? And you would kind of go through these little ups and downs of self-doubt and all this stuff. But again and again, I keep hearing the same thing. So I don't. Sometimes the self-doubt kind of creeps in, and I go, well, is it really worth it? And then my colleagues in the podcasting world always seem to kind of pull through and flush those self-doubt things away. So that's good. Am I where I wanted to be, or did I surpass my expectations? I definitely surpassed them, because I could not imagine this. I kind of live... Personally, I kind of live kind of like in the weekly kind of realm. I don't think very too far in the future, except for, where I want to be in my relationship. But as far as the podcast and the business thing, no, I did not expect this. And I didn't expect to be asked to speak and actually, be in the position that I am today, which I would say is pretty good. I would say I'm thankful for the people in my circles and the influence that I have nowadays. And Get in the Lab is slowly climbing as a video podcast authority. So that wasn't what I expected, but I'll take it. And I always could just kind of follow my inner compass instead of trying to project where I'm going to be. I just kind of move, kind of instinctively, and then that works better for me. So next thing was, okay, so the kind of question that I'm getting from you, I hope, is that, you're wondering if I'm somebody to model yourself after, if you're going to kind of quote unquote follow in my footsteps or do your own thing with creating content online and maybe becoming a podcaster or a YouTuber or something. Sure. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to set an example. This is how I do it. And by all means, take whatever works for you. With what I'm doing, and you can always ask questions and stuff like that. But then I would ask, tweak it so that's yours. I think a big thing with creating something and being an artist is ownership. You have to own whatever you're creating. And to me, that's always been really prominent. Nobody had to tell me I needed to own it. I just always felt that. And I think that's something that's kind of unsaid between any artist that you talk to. There's a sort of ownership. They want to sign the canvas, right? They want to stamp the photograph, all this stuff. So own it, take everything that you can to inspire you, to make you press record or press publish. But in the end of the day, you want your name to say, by whoever you are, and be proud of that fact. Water. Okay. All right. So, another thing I have to say about that is that, am I somebody to model after? But at the same time, okay, cool. If you find people to model after, that's great. And you get inspired to do so. At the same time, like, who cares? If you are solving a problem with your content, whatever your business model is, then that's really all you need. I think that's at the bottom of every business model, they're solving a problem, right? So as long as you're doing that, and if you can throw in, a twinge of your personality or your brand, that's really all any business is. We're not reinventing the wheel too much around here. There are a few innovators out there, and that's awesome, and you could be one of those as well. But as far as creating content, we're all in the same vortex. We're all spinning the same web. We're just doing it in our own different way, with our own different brand, which is cool because that means we're not really in competition. We're all helping each other out and being part of the same industry of making this world go round. It's a very kumbaya sort of perspective on it, but that's kind of how I feel. But yeah, so, as long as you're solving a problem, big or small, that's where it starts, and it comes to a point where you can plan and you can judge the distance and you can hype yourself up, but there comes a point where you just gotta jump. So let me tell you a story, okay, really quick. As you might know, Kevin and I have become like crazy gym boulder climbers, right? So we're climbing without the harness and stuff. So there comes a point where like we super love to climb, and we're about at like a V2 level, which is starting to become like more advanced moves and stuff like that. And all the routes involve some sort of like advanced super technique, and every route that you climb will have a crux, and the crux is like the hardest part of the climb. And so we're climbing this V2. Actually, I think it's like a V3. And the end move, the crux move, the crux of the climb or the route, is this crazy move where you have to like scrunch up like a frog and then explode and jump in midair and then catch the next hold. So that's what the climbers call a dino. And so it's crazy because there's a lot of little moves like that where you kind of have to leap. It's like a leap of faith, and you have to trust that you're either going to catch it or you're not, and you're going to fall, but you're just going to have to trust the fact that you just got to go right now. So you can kind of rev yourself up. You can like get yourself ready, and you can be like, give yourself a countdown and be like, 1, 2, 3 and jump, and then maybe you don't do it. So there's all this planning that you can do, especially with like say launching a podcast. But there comes a point where you got to throw all that shit away and just freaking jump, and it's a leap of faith. And just know that just like climbing, there's a soft padding that's beneath you, and it's gonna catch you when you fall if you fail. But that mental capacity of letting go, and just kind of leaping. And that's kind of the way I look at it. Sometimes you can only plan and judge the distance and hype yourself up so much where you just have to let go and jump and see where you land, and then learn after that and see what it feels like, right? So I did that. I did actually try it. I tried this dino move, and I was like, oh, it wasn't bad. And I was about like 10 inches off, which is way off. But another thing that we're going to talk about in another episode is follow through. So you can jump and you can let go, but then like there comes a point where like halfway in between that jump, I was like, okay, I jumped, that's good, give me a break. And then I kind of just let everything fall, and I didn't try to like just push through and actually really, really try to reach. So one step at a time, right? But that's my little story. Sometimes you just gotta jump, right? Let go and jump. So, Chris, is it worthwhile? You said, it will let me know if what I have to say is worthwhile. So, cause I know your name is Chris, or iHulk. So Chris /iHulk, Is it worthwhile? Yes, 1,000 times yes, if you can see it that way, right? It's all perspective. For me, if I look back at everything that I did, and there was so many mistakes, right? Like hardcore mistakes. You guys know it, some of you who have been with me since the beginning. Yeah, that was all worth it. All those mistakes. Super duper worth it, because I'm so thankful to be sitting here in front of a camera, seemingly talking to myself, but I'm talking to you guys, doing this show in a beautiful house that I love with, an awesome partner. So all that is worth it. It's kind of the same thing. It's just like, are you going to start today, or are you going to, or are you going to be for a year from now? I'll be like, damn, I wish I started a year ago. Right. So, that's what I have to say on that. So I hope that helps. And we'll move on to the next segment. Home stretch, guys. Last segment. Okay, identity. In this case, let's talk about identity. Let's talk about, what we call ourselves. So in this world, the podcasting world, the online content creator world, we call ourselves podcasters, YouTubers. I occasionally still call myself a photographer, a writer, and now we kind of just clump that together into one category, and we call ourselves content creators, because we seem to be doing it all. So the reason behind that, behind us doing everything, writing a book, having a podcast, having a YouTube show, is technology. We all seem to have a book, a podcast, a blog, an Instagram, a Facebook, a Twitter, etc. But it all happens, what happens when we lose that stuff? What happens when we lose all of these, platforms, or seemingly lose it, right? So I bring up this concept of identity crisis because of my recent stint into asking myself, who am I, and where do I fall in the content creator food chain. So we content creators, we take a lot of pride in titles, like new and noteworthy, featured in, podcaster, YouTuber, because they bring status, right? So because of these titles, they bring with them like a sense of weight to their meaning, and they can sometimes be stifling because we ourselves become slaves to those definitions. So, for instance, I wrestled with this idea for a while of a title of calling myself a podcaster, and was I worthy enough as a podcaster to give a talk on video podcasting at Podcast Movement? Because you won't find my video show on iTunes, and it's only on YouTube, and it's become like this unwritten rule that iTunes is where you need to be as a podcaster, right? So, well, I opted not to do that because I don't have allowance for that at this time. And so it's definitely on the to-do list, but posting on YouTube and saving money isn't a bad option either. And so, and also it's not going to stop me from calling myself a video podcaster just because I'm not on iTunes, or I'm not having my videos hosted and paying some ridiculous monthly fee. So while titles are great and they let us know, where to place people and things, it should never really be an excuse, or a limiter to stop you from doing what you really want to do with your content. So rules are just a result of one way of doing something, right? Or a repetitive way of doing something, or the popular way of doing something. And dude, you can make your own rules. So it's like, that's the beauty of being a solopreneur, right? An entrepreneur, running your own show. You can make your own damn rules, right? And you can break them too. So, and I invite, and you can also invite others to play with you. So please, use titles and, titles whenever they can boost you. But never forget of your own internal compass of what brings meaning to you. So your identity is whatever you want it to be, and it's not always easy to do this. And I say this very easily, but it's really just a reminder, because I'm sure, like, for example, Hollywood actors they all start out with good intentions, right? They just want to act, but it's hard to stay true to your identity when I'm sure you have so much pressure to be a name or a star or a best-selling author or a writer, etc., or whatever these titles that we have bestowed upon ourselves. And I'd like to just remind myself and you lab rats out there to remember that, to just kind of check in with yourself often. For instance, like this show is going to have frequent breaks, like I was talking about earlier, throughout the season, so I don't burn myself out and lose myself trying to keep up with this content and keep up with the title that I've bestowed upon myself as a video podcaster, and to just stay within the content stream. So it's a reminder to you guys. And so with that, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Okay. But chew on this, for the meantime. Seriously, we're going to take frequent breaks because that's just what needs to happen. And like I said, these episodes are kind of long format now. What do you guys think? What do you think of the podcasting movement that's happening around us, and what shows are changing your life right now in a big way or a small way? And do you guys feel like Hulk or Chris, wondering if what you have to say is worthwhile? And lastly, what do you think of identity? What if you woke up tomorrow with a different identity, and what would you hate, and then what would you love? That would be kind of cool. So leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you in there. Like this video if you did, subscribe to become a lab rat today, and until next time, my name is Megan, inviting you to get in the lab. We'll see ya. Peace.